workshop. I'm here with our co-host Laura.
Welcome, everybody.
All right, let's do the quality check, see where we are on all of our platforms. In the meantime, we can share my screen.
I can't believe it's already episode 13.
We're putting in that work.
Hmm. I
um,
like it. And this is a joint effort. Just now, I was just given a lot of feedback from Eric about the direction of the workshop since we're making this for you. And therefore, a lot of it just came out a little bit. Um, it was just changed in the last 30 minutes. So, thank you for that. I hope you like it.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we try to make this again, right? The main focus of this isn't what we're presenting. It's really for you guys to make this engaging and interactive, and share us your thoughts on anything technological related. We can invite people onto our show, like if you wanted to, right? So we can invite you on, and you can share your screen or share your camera, or just you don't have to share your camera, just your voice, but you can come and make it on the call, and we just talk about whatever it is that the topic or session that you want to talk about. So it's not just this isn't just for the topics that we have on hand, of course. While we build the audience and we build the community, we have something to talk about, to maybe reach out to people within the community, and see what is it that we're trying to figure out, what's important to you guys. What are you guys what's going to attract an audience, and also along the way we're creating content that we think is important. And we're starting from the beginning, right? We started with hardware, and now we're making the whole journey all the way up to um, AI. Right now we've gone through the hardware, we've gone through some networking basics and things like that, and relating that back to small businesses. And now we're going to talk about cybersecurity. Um, a beginner's guide to cybersecurity for a small business, and what's going to provide you guys the most value.
That's right. So, why don't you open up this presentation to our main goal, which
Yeah,
you have just covered. Um, we are trying to make the world a better place, one solution at a time, and this is a opportunity that we're trying to build up. So your questions are welcome.
absolutely. Let's talk about tech, right? It's right there on the slide. Learn new tips and find the best tech solutions for your business. Man, and I remember last session I was like, man, I don't want to talk about IPs and all this, and come to
That
find
was my
out we did a
favorite
good job.
session.
Oh man. So hopefully we can do something similar today. Um, Today's session's mainly about cybersecurity threats to small businesses, and what you can do to protect yourself, and some common issues that small businesses would face, and what do you need to do to create a disaster recovery plan.
Great. We face this every day, right?
Yes. Yeah, these are the most common things that we have experience with. We'll we'll note that um, it's weird because we have clients that are here in the U.S., but they have offices worldwide, right? Like Mexico and other places in the world, um, and we protect their employees as well, anywhere in the world, and we protect their offices wherever their offices may be. And it's surprising. I'm trying to think of, screw it. I'm going to be completely transparent, right? So we had an event, because every government needs to report the business finances, right? No matter where you are, which country you are, there's some form of tax that every business has to pay. And so we had an event in Mexico where um, there's a process where you have to get a security key that is literally a USB drive from the Mexican government. Um, and so, it's from the government. It should be secure. It should be safe. You can't report your finances to that government agency without it, right? It's the only way that you can access their platform and do the things the way that they've securely processed it. And so they're handing out these USB drives. One of our clients grabs it as well. They're like, hey, this is business, right? This comes from a government agency. I shouldn't be worried about anything. They plug it into their computer. And then that's when we realize, wait, this is malware.
So you're talking about having a little key. You mean like a token?
A USB,
Like a
yeah,
you.
yeah. It was a USB. Yeah, it's a USB.
The,
Um, what's going on? You okay?
I am. I was just my dad got yelled at right now. I'm so sorry about that. And I'm like, can you guys behave? Oh crap.
No worries, no
Sorry.
worries.
So
No,
sorry.
it's okay. I was like,
Yeah.
wait, is everything okay? Are you okay?
I'm okay.
But
I'm okay.
going back, yeah, it was a USB. Um, it was a USB,
Wow.
and it on that USB it had some software um, to create the key, to create the authentication of like, hey, we
Yeah.
you have the it's just like a lock and key. We launch their software, we put in the key, and then it should authenticate of saying, yeah, we have access to their platform, right? Um,
Yeah.
so it actually had nothing to do with the
Oops.
security part. It had everything to do with the USB, right? So it had act number one. It had a Trojan. It actually had some botnet malware on it as well. So
Mm.
we got the report, we got the alert and notification, and then we're looking at it, and um, it is literally um, a virus that is meant to listen to keystrokes, and it's really meant to just listen and collect as much information as possible from the host machine. And it's actually designed to capture personal identifiable information and things like that. And well, when you're dealing with finances and you're reporting finances,
Super sensitive.
yeah, that's sensitive information. So our software platform, our antivirus platform was able to capture it. It was able to quarantine that
Mm.
software off of the device, and the user didn't even notice that. It was all in the background, right? The user didn't notice that it was detected, that it was a problem. We got notified, and we rectified it, and we made sure that it wasn't any other issues, because it actually, the moment that it detected it, it actually deleted it from the hard drive, from the USB drive, and from their computer. Like, it stopped it completely. The moment it was plugged in, it was completely wiped. Um,
So I guess a small, I mean, this software detection that happens, like you run kind of like a small investigation of what does it really happen, and then you go by, okay, so this was compromised, and this is where you got this information, or
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
Wow. It's
Anytime
like
that
a
there's a security threat, we do a risk assessment as to what
mm-hmm.
happened, why did it happen, where did it come from, um,
Yeah.
and just making sure that we understand exactly what happened and why it happened. And so in this case, um, we didn't know what to do because we got that from the government agency in Mexico, right? So,
Yeah.
um,
Like at that
um,
level, what where are you defending yourself from? Wow.
yeah, and so, and then also we did some research around because the tech community is very, we share when these things happen, we share that information um, freely, right? We want to make sure that others aren't affected by this. So we looked into the community. We saw that we weren't the only ones. It's actually a common thing, um, and um, we kind of just left it like that because the threat had been removed. Now
Mm-hmm.
it's a concern now. The threat was removed from that USB drive. So
Mm-hmm.
now we've put in some protocols in place to, like, the next time if they get any other software or any other USB drive from this agency, to contact us first, and let's do it in a
Mm-hmm. In the process. Yeah.
let's process it out,
Mm-hmm.
and plug in the USB into a dummy environment where we can detect whether, what type of software is on there. Because if we can remove it and we can detect it, that just means that's just the first layer. But what happens the next time? Are they going to get a better virus, or a virus that is even better to be undetected, and
Sophisticated.
things more
Yeah.
sophisticated? And so
Mm-hmm.
so now we have some protocols in place to kind of separate. We can't trust
Yeah.
them anymore, right? We can't trust the
Uh,
USBs, so we gotta
I
quarantine
feel
them.
like I feel like for every time that something like that happens, um, like compliance is at some point something that the user needs to make it happen. So I feel like for every time that there's something, it's like, oh my god, I couldn't be trusting this, and it's like, okay, so but I guess stepping back for a second and think again on your own procedures, your even your the way that we wake up and engage into with with the internet. Like it's so
Yeah,
beautiful, and also it is so
scary.
not well intended. Yes.
Yeah, there's a
Yep.
good and bad side to everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? And everything can be used for good and bad, and that's kind of the story. That kind of is where the story ended. What do we do then, right? We can report it to that
Mm-hmm.
government agency, but then now, is it the entire agency, or is it one person in the in that department?
Right.
And so, um,
Root cause.
yeah,
Wow.
and so, um, from that perspective, we, we're still, this is actually a real story from recent. We're still we're still talking about, like, what do we do? Like, what's the next steps? We put in these security processes in place for the next time that we get a USB. But like, if it was in the United States, we would just report it to the agency, and we would report it to CISA, and we'd have, some proper channels to report it to. Um, but since it's a foreign country, then we're kind of we don't really know who to trust and who to contact,
Yeah.
and which avenues should we go that's going to provide actual value back to us. So, anyways, that's just a little bit of the threats that cybersecurity can house. Of course, if um, and let's say that that did happen in the U.S. Like, what would we do, right? Report it to the FBI, report it to CISA, um, and kind of move from there. But Um, oh, I just got an email that says CapCut is back in the US.
Oh, was it gone? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Did it leave? I think because CapCut is one of those things that
Tools for TikTok.
for TikTok, yeah, so it probably got banned as well.
Good news then.
But it's returned now, so that's fine. So along with the TikTok ban, they banned a couple of um, other applications. But anyways, that's going back to this topic. What is malware, right? So that could come from downloads, or they can trick you into downloading something that you shouldn't have, um, emails that are spam, or in this, what happened connecting to other infected devices like that USB that I was talking about. That could USBs can be infected. Other computers could be infected, right? If you connect it to your network, that's where like botnets come into play. They just try to see what's the next one they can infect, and then to increase that network. And so yeah, it's meant to steal information and create problems. Ransomware, we've heard about that over the years. They will get access to a system or a computer, and then they will lock it down and encrypt the files, so that they only have the encryption key, and you have to pay them, or they'll destroy or leak the data to the public. And then there's phishing attacks, which is just um, trying to it's trying to get that ransomware, trying to get that malware onto that system. They're using other ways to lure you out. It's a phishing, like they're trying to lure you into their scheme, whether that's to hand over money, to buy gift cards, um, or to get access to your computer and install malware or viruses. So those are
Yep.
common things. That's where cybersecurity, a good antivirus, a good endpoint. Essentially, it's called endpoint protection.
So I found this framework from the National. This is a big name.
NIST,
Yeah,
National Institute of Standard and
Standards
Technology.
and Technology. Thank you very much.
You
So
got it.
it's a security framework, and I guess I try to allocate like a simple, because the thing about being a small business owners is that you are not sure how you are being going to be, a vulnerable. And so to put it in perspective, even an e-commerce could just be a a target, I guess. And
Yeah, it's a
so
very easy target if you have an online store, and that's where you process everything. That's where you hold inventory. That's where you make you process payments. Like if it's an all-in-one system, um, it's a very good target.
mhm.
So what is the CIA triad, and why is it important? Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So
I guess it's a model in which security systems are built up in order to protect users.
right,
So the way that is. the concept in which this is being portrayed is that you have passwords, you execute on those passwords, and how are you even doing that? I mean, we from the most basics of not sharing your passwords and having somewhere to to keep it safe in place, like the last time we said, and discuss about LastPass, and to even question that your business with those two concepts would be online. So the availability of that is critical for any business owner. So
So
it's very important. How can this is just a start, the most basic concept of how our business, uh, how the business needs to protect themselves.
yeah, so make sure that the system's confidential. Everybody has a login and with a username and password. Even better if they can have two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication to add that more protection to that confidentiality, right? You don't want to be able um, for your accounts to be um, um, what's it called, brute forced, where they can just guess your passwords unlimited amount of times, right? You don't want you don't want that ability. And then the
Hmm.
integrity of the information once you're inside, making sure that you have the right access, or the people or the user accounts have the right access, and it's only the access that they have and nothing else, right? If you don't have permission to any other um, type type of data, you shouldn't be able to see it. And then the availability of that, right? So that's the uptime, making sure that the hardware or the infrastructure is up and running. Um, as you've seen the from these software vendors, they can promise you a 99.99% uptime, right? And that's part of their security, is that, like, look, our infrastructure is so secure that we will have it up 99.999% of the time. And they put that into their promise and guarantee of their product, right? So this is important for small businesses if they're choosing a software, right? Um, you want these three things will be important to the selection of that software.
Correct.
Sorry, I'm getting a message. Give me 1 second.
Is it a question?
No, I'm getting um, it's it's work.
Work. So the next slide does um, kind of goes through. So I found a really great source of resources for small businesses to go through um, the challenges that they face, and we are aware of how small businesses have limited resources. Uh, uh, Often the budget of each of them are just within the
Yeah.
the
So
cash
actually,
flow limitation.
most small businesses don't even think about the IT side of things. They're just like, I'm just gonna pay for the software and try to figure out the cheapest way to get up and running and be productive and create an operation.
Now, on
Um,
that other side of perspective, like you can't really blame them when there are business owners that are wearing a lot of hats. So it really does depend on where is your money inputting the system. Because if you're a website e-commerce owner, then you have to have your little framework of security.
Yeah, and it also depends on the type of business, right? So if you are launching an e-commerce, um, I I would assume that you're some form of tech, like you're technical, like you can figure some stuff out on your own, um, without so and that's it depends on the business, right? So if the business is more real world in nature, like an actual physical a brick and mortar retail store, um, and or a restaurant or things like that, then IT or a manufacturing plant, right? Like IT becomes kind of a background, right? Because the what's more important is getting customers through the door and selling, right? And selling and making sure that you have enough sales for that production line. Um, and that's kind of where probably IT turns into kind of a afterthought. And it's one of those things where you you kind of want it at the same, like as you're building it, you want it to be side by side. It should, the most, and I agree from a production revenue perspective, it should be, um, that we should focus on, creating the business process and things like that. But it should be part of your business plan as well, as to how are you going to use IT and what type of systems, and who's going to take care of that, right? Who's going to be
Hmm.
responsible to take care of those IT related problems? Because um, the software could work, right? And but you also have to learn the software, and you also have to learn how to work it. And what happens when, um, oh, well, we're only going to make these types of sales, but what happens when the user makes a different option or selects a different option, and the system doesn't do what you expect it to do? Like, what are you going to do then, right? How are you going to react, and how fast are you going to be able to resolve that? That's where, an IT department or a technology department, um, really saves
Creates
you.
that safety net.
Yes, yeah. And then also as you grow, um, you start to be that IT person. And now, if you have 30 employees, then when something happens, you have to spend the time out of your day to now fix those problems for them. And well, what happens if that employee is waiting for 2 hours, 3 hours, until you have the time to get with them to fix their problem, their IT problem? Um, hopefully that employee has other responsibilities and other things that they can do in the meantime, that create value to the organization. But that's where, a technology or an IT department also comes into play, where when these things happen, we can get them back on course of their day-to-day operations, right? Have them focus on the day-to-day operations so that you don't have to worry about that, and you can kind of delegate that out. So that's really it, right? So we have limited resources here, small budgets, sometimes no budget, or no. The awareness is very important. Um, and then the unpreparedness for disaster is always a gotcha, right? I hear a lot of typing, Laura.
Really?
Yeah, we hear the birds too. It's beautiful.
Oh. Oh, sorry about that. I was just adding up on the framework, since I probably missed it just so to the next slide. But
Ah,
it is just it was just I missed it. I missed it for to be able to I guess completely create like a step by step uh
the stored procedure.
mm-hmm, of how to do it.
Or
I
a
mean,
standard
there's
operating procedure.
mm-hmm. Well, like if from a I guess from the small business perspective, you always are within that fine line of being very wise and smart and a good steward of your investment. But I mean, these frameworks are developed, there are tools already in place, and there are businesses like DevTech that does these types of uh, you know like expert background in order for small business to be aware. So I missed it on this slide, so I wanted to input it, and that's why I was just like quickly editing this slide just for them to see
Yeah,
it.
no worries. No, and I was talking about like unpreparedness for disasters. There's so much strategy that goes in there because it's not only what you're going to do when disaster happens, but like what classifies a disaster. Now, are you
Mm-hmm.
down for now? What when do you start executing on that disaster on that recovery plan? Right? Is it 30 minutes? Is it within an hour? Is it
Mm-hmm.
immediate? Depending on the type of disaster. Um, and so these are the types of things that need to be um, identified, right? Like for your business, like what type of disaster recovery should it and what does that look like, and when do you use it? Um, and that's very important. There is, there is a that Institute of Standards and Technology, and they provide, some very high level um, 5-step system for small businesses, which is very simple. Update your software, secure your files, make sure that everything has a password, and don't leave these devices unattended in public spaces. Make sure that everything's encrypted, and then use multi-factor authentication for everything. Right? So um, that's if you can follow that and in all your softwares follow these types of protocols, then you're pretty protected. And then if you guys need any help with that, you can contact us at info@evdevtech.com.
There's actually I think it was this a 7-page framework in which the all of the basics that you just suggested are listed in these 5 steps of identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And so I kind of went on a very this is a critical step by step, but they do also provide a framework for you to protect your business. So this is just in a critical stage. What would you do? So
Exactly, right? So, like, identify the critical assets. That could be your main network equipment, your main servers, your internet, right? Your internet provider. Um, you might you might identify that as a risk, and you might have two internet providers. Um, you might even have satellite as well. You might have three. Now that satellite is more of a viable option with what's it called, Starlink. The space the Elon Musk's Starlink. So it also depends. It depends on where you are as a business and how critical it is for you to keep operating, right? Depending on the type of disaster. If it's if it's a blackout, right? Power outage, etc., and you have servers on premise, you might want some some backup generators or some backup power to keep things up and running. Um, and at least you can get some sales in, or at least get some work going. So that's where step one is, right? Identify those critical assets, right? And then, like I'm already doing, right? Assess those risks. What could happen that could um, knock those assets out of functionality or out of operation? And then what's your backup to that, right? What's Do you need backup data, or do you need a backup plan, or other resources? Um, Recovery procedures. What are you going to do to get that back up and running? Um, Especially when we're talking about hardware, what happens, and switches usually just work for years, right? Without anybody having to touch them and things like that. Like network equipment just works. But when they don't work, when they fail, right?
Mhm.
How fast can you recover from that? Um, do you have redundancy with those switches or those areas? Um, so that's important, right? Because can you even identify that a network hardware is down, right? Like that's actually a question. Um, Now, since a lot of us work remotely, like that could take a couple hours depending on the time of day that that hardware goes down. Like, so does that person need to drive in and, and do a physical analysis of the switches and see what was broken and how long? So how long is it going to take them to drive in? How long is it going to take them to identify that that is the problem? And is that an appropriate amount of time? Do you have the right software? And so that's where the recovery procedures are very important. Um, we use a lot of like from a network perspective, we have we use a platform that allows us to monitor them remotely, and if a switch or an access point or a firewall or any device goes down, or that device isn't communicating anymore, we know exactly which
Where?
device it is and where it's
Mm-hmm.
at. And that's important because if you know what the problem is, you know what you need to fix,
Yep.
um, and so that cuts down that recovery time, um, and we do that. So most of the time, and the way we've designed our networks for some businesses is that they're double redundancy between these network equipment, and that's pretty standard practice
Mm-hmm.
nowadays. Um, So if one switch goes out, you don't worry about it because the next switch will just take care of the routing and the switching of that device until you can until you can replace that device and get it back to operate to optimal operations. And then after that, you got to train, like, who's going to do this stuff, right? Are you going to do this? Are you going to have your team also understand it? Well, what happens if you're on vacation, right? Well, you can't not just one person should be able to know what to do when these things happen, when a disaster happens. And so you need to make sure that you train the team, that multiple people are understanding of that, um, and you have to test the plan. All right, you need to have a failover at least once a month, once a year, not once a month. That would be ridiculous. But once a year, at least have one failover. See how that works, and and
To test it.
it's a true
Put
test.
it.
It's a true
Yeah.
test. Yeah, put it to work and see what's going to happen. Did it work? Um, did your fail-safe systems come back online? Right? Did it work as you designed it to work? And if it didn't, do an assessment as to why. Why didn't it do it? And what do you need to do to get it operational? And then you got to test it again, right? You have to test it until it's perfect. And well, not perfect, but actually, yeah, perfect, because it's supposed to work the way that it's designed to work. And so, um, and I think in this case, that's what perfection of a perfect test would be: is that when you fail over, nobody feels it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how it should be designed.
Failing forward.
Exactly. We're always failing forward.
Yeah, I got that
Fall on
from
your
the book.
face.
Yeah, just got it from that book we're reading. What's it called? And no excuses.
Yes, no excuses. By Brian Tracy. It's a really good book. I recommend it for everyone.
Yep.
All
Very
right,
good.
so it looks like we're almost done here.
Yes.
So a closing thought. So when do you call a professional?
When do you call EB DevTech? Tell us.
I was hoping you would tell me. I'm testing you. I'm gonna
So
test you. When do you call us?
any I think from the standpoint of the complexity, this is all about what is the business about. So there is minimal complexity in some of the businesses, so that means that anyone can troubleshoot, and maybe some sort of random attack could be placed in a well-trained user, and you're good. uh, it serves anything that involves any sensitive customer information, like on the financial perspective. I think you have to involve a professional. When you require those frequent downtime, what you said, yeah, maybe it, one can wait for someone to come back from vacation. But I don't think that would be the case. I think that you have to call a professional when you would require that data to go back live, on a business perspective. And anything that will require for you to grow, mm, any scalability challenges, I think you would be good to call and I bet you those are the type of calls that you receive. It's like, I'm thinking about adding so many users into this organization. This is where you need to be called. So actually, those are some of the website resources that I found in the FTC, where there's some business guidances and standardizations, like the NIST one, that were pretty very interesting for from a perspective of a small business owner, and a company like EBDEP, they can help manage with that.
Exactly. And you hit it on the spot, right? So complex data management, especially if you like you're in the financial industry,
Mm-hmm.
with the written information security plan, and you need, especially if you're a fairly large um, accounting firm or CPA or someone that works into the financial industry, um,
Mm-hmm.
it's you got to make sure that all of your systems handle the data correctly, and it's managed correctly, and that
Mm-hmm.
could be and it has to be based off of the IRS compliance, FTC compliance, and then there's some federal compliance involved with that as well, with the GBLA Act. So um, and so that's very important. So you got to make sure that you're compliant to the laws, and well, we've read them, and we understand them. And then also, if there's another law that comes about um, for another industry, then it's usually very similar processes or solutions that we have to apply, that we are applying in other industries, that we just now need to apply into that industry now, um, because of that regulation change. So, complex data management, especially if you have frequent downtime, like that's money lost. Like if
Yeah.
your PO point of sale system or your sales system is down, or your phone systems are down, and part of your operation makes money from that, that's money lost. And so
Mm-hmm.
call us. We'll make sure that you're up 99.99% of the time, and we'll fix it, and we'll fight to make sure that we have a process in place to keep that. And especially the scalability challenges. We want to make sure that everything that we advise you on is not only a solution for today, but a solution for tomorrow. Because your business, you want to make sure that you keep growing, right? And so what is the software that you're going to use today, is that going to be sufficient when you're no longer a 5-man team or a 10-man team, but now a 30, 50, 60-man team? um, so yeah, we take that into consideration every single time.
Yep.
All right, so this is this is for you guys. Every Tuesday and Thursday from 11:30 to 12:30, we're here to provide you live tech support for anyone that's seeking, IT solutions, or just to have a conversation about the state of AI or quantum computing, or hey, what do you think about this, or this device, or this hardware, or this technology? This time is for you guys. Um, and so this workshop is really for an open mic, right? It's an open mic session for you guys. Come give us a chat, and talk to us, and we're trying to keep tabs on all of um, the the channels right now, because we're live on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and Twitch, and what else? Where else are we live right now?
Did you
Um,
set up the Instagram? Maybe.
yeah, but I don't think that that's working. So right now we're just LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, and then on Riverside, where um, we can invite people over. But yeah, that's this is for you guys, and I hope you guys found any value here. Um, if you want to see the recording of this, you can look it up on our YouTube channel. It's at EV DevTech, so you can find us very easily there. And the cool thing about on EV DevTech is that um, the videos are chaptered. So you can now see all the sections of what we're talking about and go directly to what's important to you guys, and stuff like that. So that's important.
Yep.
And
So this
and
week I worked on a just the beginner's guide. Since we went through this cybersecurity subject, I wanted to provide some actionable steps. And when that happens, I tend on reading on other blog posts that I got inspired on, and there are some really cool examples on what to do and what would be kind of like the use case. Let's say you're a bakery, or a e-commerce, anything that is just um, like a normal, this is just a normal business. A normal business is, it could be not under attack, it's just your systems are not working. So if they're not working properly, we have a way to figure that one out.
exactly, yeah. So that you can find that on our website, at ebdevtech.com, and then click on the blog title,
Correct.
and it's the Beginner's Guide to Cybersecurity for Small Businesses: Creating a Disaster Recovery Plan that Works. Awesome. So this is actually, they can use this information and build a plan themselves if they wanted
Yeah. Oh well, I'm gonna need you to call us too.
to. Call us. If you need help, call us.
Exactly.
All right. So next time,
Um, I thought of going, see, that was the primary subject today, but I thought of what can we, I guess on the next section, what can we teach on a basic level? Um, because I've always been interested, but it's not my passion. So,
you
any,
know, we can do develop simple AI basics, like how to use Chat GPT and Anthropic and Gemini, and which one's good for what,
so,
and
uh-huh. So I think
because I think that would be more valuable than coding basics, because you know Mark Zuckerberg's already saying that we're not going to need any mid-level software
software
engineers
engineers, that's so
anymore.
bad. It's like, okay, but they still need to learn the basics. It's not like we're not gonna need
Yeah,
them. But I
Exactly.
get the statement is just very broad, but is um
Yeah, I knew exactly what he meant, and if you're not in the industry, I can see how you could take that the wrong way. Or if you're very new, if you're like the
new.
junior and you haven't really understood the foundations of what a software engineering career looks like and stuff like that, like I can see how that can be very scary, but
Mm-hmm.
it's
And
not
I don't think
replacing
it's
you.
scary at all. I think that
Yeah.
there are some valid comments on it because one needs to be, like getting your tools. What's it called? There's an expression in Spanish, but now I'm looking
What's
at
it in
it in
Spanish?
English. Es como ponle filo a tu serrucho. Is the seventh
Sharpen your
habit of,
skills.
thank you so much. It's the seventh habit of highly effective people. And I understand that, but see, going from the basic to the most complicated things have next the last session was super fun because of that,
Hmm.
because you have to understand the basics in order to understand the most complicated problems. But
Exactly.
I guess I like that
Well, let's
idea.
see. Yeah, or
Yeah.
let's see because I we all use software, right? And all software goes from it all started from a simple project, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even creating that button that you click all the time, right? Like that's software. So,
Yeah.
um, and if we can teach people to think a little bit like how is this software made, then they would have a little bit maybe more patience or
Understanding. Yeah.
understanding that
Mm-hmm.
like if there's a problem, like okay, like not to get frustrated about it, but to like
Uh-huh.
start working to report the bugs. Like I just had a good example last week. um, my my cousin is having a problem with his iPhone messages ever since they switched over to that encrypted messaging with the whole Google Android
Okay.
um, communication between iOS and Android. Um, and so ever since then, he hasn't, like, I don't get his text messages. Like, he has to message me through another medium um,
Wow.
because for some reason his encrypted
They're
texts
not
don't,
going through.
yeah, they're not coming through to me. Um, and so I told him, I was like, well, why haven't you reported that yet? And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, well, that's their problem. And I'm like, and he's in college right now for computer science, right? So
Yeah. So it's
I
very
was
well versed. Yeah.
no, I wouldn't say. Well, he's starting, right? It's like
Yeah.
he's
Mm-hmm.
starting he's starting his educate his higher education, his college education, and so like I had to tell him like, look, if you're gonna be part of the industry, then you're a you have to be
User.
a good end user as well. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you want to be part of the industry, you have to lead by example, right? If you want to lead your users, if you're going to create software and you're going to be creating applications that people will use, then you have to be an example user for everybody else. Um, for
Mm-hmm.
all the other software, right? So if you find a bug, report it. Or if you
Yes.
find an issue with the software, let us know, right? Like we're a lot of software developers, we're already busy writing the next line of code or the next application or the next feature to release. um, and so if something that's already out there not working as expected, then yell, scream, like say
Mm-hmm.
something, or else it might
Wow.
take some time before we go back and review that that part of the application or feature that we created, especially if it's like with confidential or system information that because we don't have access to production information. We use dummy data and we use like right, like we try to recreate those scenarios. And so if if you want to be a good end user, right, you have to, yeah, that's what a good end user will do. That if there is a problem,
Provide
if
feedback.
provide the feedback,
Mm-hmm.
take a screenshot, provide, and people think like, oh, it's going to take so much time. It takes 3 minutes, 4 minutes. I would say
You know,
5 minutes. I wouldn't
I
even say 5 minutes. It takes 3 minutes. You take a screenshot, you take a screenshot of the error, you send it, you email
yeah.
it, you text message, you whatever, send it to your account manager. Hey, you title it, I have this problem. In the body, you put the screenshot, you hit send. If they have any
Hmm.
questions, they'll come back to you.
Yeah. So I've a lot of what you're telling us right now is just so valid. Like I love how there's this end user and the developer type of communication of I don't know sometimes how to even say that I have this issue as a user. And then is it really that simple? Like how can I portray that I'm experiencing this? Yeah, the screenshot works, but in a sense that sometimes I don't know whether I'm explaining the problem correctly. And I think that's a good idea on how to, better communicate with your IT department also.
Yeah, and it's also, you don't like, just communicate it in English. Like, hey, I was trying to do this and I expected this, but this happened.
That's
And
a
then hit send.
great framework to say. That's my very first slide next week.
I was doing
Nice.
this,
Yeah.
I expected this, but
And
this
this
happened.
happened. Okay, great. And that's it's some sort of like the basic programming skills that you need in order to do that. See, that was my subject today, but thank you so much for that feedback.
Yeah,
We'll do
it was
that. We'll
really fun.
cover that next week.
And we try, and we have it's training, right? We have to train our users. If we're going to create software, we have to train the users, and we have to help them understand what it was meant to do and how it
Yeah.
was meant to do it. But sometimes that gets lost in translation, or that gets lost with time. That understanding gets lost with time. But if all of our users can understand, I was doing this, but this happened, but I was expecting this, then if you just send that to any IT person,
I love
anybody in
it.
the industry, we're gonna be able to understand what was happening, and or we can try to recreate that. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to do this. I'm gonna try and figure out if this happens, but I really want this to happen. So how can I go from here to here, right? So and most of the time we don't have to open the software or the
Mhm.
application to give you a solution. Like if you said, okay, I needed to go from here to here, then it's like, we know exactly what you did. You try this? Did you try this? Did you do this? And we go from there, right? And so
No.
I think that's, you know what, I'm going to create a framework, a ticketing framework for that. I think that's a good
Nice.
idea.
Okay.
All
Well,
righty.
let's
Are there
see.
any questions? No,
I
I
don't.
don't
I
see
don't
any.
see any questions.
All righty. Well, all right, guys. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Laura, for this topic. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see
Take
you on the
care.
next one.
Bye bye.
Goodbye.